Thank you. Let me formally introduce Dr. Wallace. He is the Executive Director of HR for the Tukwila School District and has been a superintendent in 9 different states. And so I bring with me quite a bit of experience. And today we will share with you, through scenario-based teaching today, some of the legal requirements of administrators and teachers. And so before we get started, I want to tell you that my job in Michigan, even though it was on a college campus, that is where my high school was. And so my responsibilities there on the college campus was K-12. And so it was a little different because we developed a high school 11th, 12th, and 13th grades. And so it was a unique situation that I had years ago to develop that from scratch. And we're pretty proud because in 2015, we were written up in Newsweek magazine as one of the best high schools in the United States. So I'm pretty proud of that. Started as a classroom teacher years and years ago, and I taught business education in high school in Detroit Public Schools. And then I got married and moved to Lansing with my husband and did not get back into K-12. And some of us know that started a whole different thing with the unions throughout the United States. I was in the era when our school district was on strike all the way through November. And so that was the beginning of no striking for teachers, and it's kind of important to mention that today, being what's happening now around the country again. And so we'll get to some of those scenarios today, but I want to tell you what we're going to cover, but I'm not going to lecture you. I'm going to present today through the eyes of a superintendent, and I want you to get into my head of what I'm thinking about all of you when I see you in your classrooms, when you're managing and leading at the building level. So I'm going to get you involved right quick in the presentation today. But let me tell you what Dr. Chow told me to prepare today. What about those principal evaluation processes and issues? I'm not going to talk to you about eval, but I am going to give you some scenarios that say this is going to impact your evaluation and how. Reduction of certificated employee positions. How does that happen? What are we thinking? As Deputy Superintendent, I was the Chief Financial Officer of the district, and guess what? You guys don't like me this time of the year. What does that mean to you as that principal when you're helping me make those decisions is very important. Do you have a choice in the matter in all cases? Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't, and sometimes you have to go along with it. We'll talk about that today, but we'll do it with a scenario. Complaints about principals. Boy, there are many. There are many, many, many at my desk all the time. They come from parents, they come from vendors, they come from community members, they come from your students, they come from your staff. Wow, what are they? Let's have a scenario on that as well. Contractual obligations. I just pointed this one out differently because this is very, very serious today, and it's getting a lot of principals in trouble. And so I have one scenario that's going to examine that, okay? Need to help you stay out of hot water, okay? Conflict of interest. Whoa. I said I'm from Detroit. How many remember all our principals going to jail a few years ago? Still working on the cases, okay, from that one right there. How to hire administrators and how to remove them. And hiring definitely affects the culture of the district, okay? Rights of principals. Do you have a right in some areas? Don't you? Unions and strategies and issues with them. Whoa, they can be friendly and they can be tough. And with the McCleary legislation today and working out all that we need, and you know one thing in McCleary, it says we cannot give more than 3.5% raise, okay? So we just got that last week. The salaries are set and we're on our way. And wow, are we going to have to really work together with unions to make sure everything's okay and that we come out, management and union, in the collaborative process. The principals' responsibilities related to financial management. In the King County area, the district with the worst fund balance is Kent, the worst financial status right now, and guess who's right behind them? What district? Tukwila. And what are we going to do about it, and what's your responsibility as a principal? And so we're going to get started. Just a quick snapshot of the district. Right now, today, we have 2760. That's the number I'm getting ready to build the budget on, so that's exact. We have approximately 140 students less than 2 years ago, so the demographics is changing. And the reason why it's changing, our students are electing more online programs. We tell the narrative that they're going to other school districts, but when we survey them, they are not. They're going to a different delivery option. What are we going to do about that? Tukwila has answered that call, and we are now a statewide online school district. There are 2 in the state of Washington. The other one is Toppamish. So any student in the state of Washington can take their full middle school and high school program online from Tukwila. We have approximately 400 employees. Okay, so we're going to get started. Each of these scenarios that you have at your desk has a legal implication. And I'm going to keep you rolling through this because we have until 2:30. Each of these could take a full day, okay? But I have Dr. Wallace here too, because we'll talk a little bit about what you do in the case, but I want you to think of legally. What's the legal implication of what's happening here in this scenario, okay? The first one, I'm going to start it off just a little easy for you, okay? You have been attending leadership meetings. You means principal. You're going to all be principals next year. You have been attending leadership meetings for some time, and the discussion always heads towards the belittlement of a staff member. You feel uncomfortable, but you want to be seen as a team player. What do you do? What's the impact on you as that leader in that team, okay, in that meeting? What could it escalate to, meaning legally? You will always have to go first. I will never give you the answer first. Okay, okay, Doreen. Is it okay if I move around a little bit? Okay, 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 okay.
I think that it could lead to like a hostile work environment, harassment. So can I stop there, or do you, I don't know what I would do quite yet.
Okay? It could lead to harassment. She just named a legal obligation we have. Okay?
As a leader, it can lead to kind of a negative culture in the building, and that you're allowing other people to belittle other staff members, and if word gets out that you don't do anything about it, then I think that's going to cause more problems, because you'll have less respect from the staff, as well as kind of less retention from other staff members who might be good but might be concerned that, you know, somebody's going to be talking about them and you're not going to defend them or have their backs.
So you're building a negative culture. Okay? Let's turn it to legally. Okay? So guess what I see or hear you say as a superintendent? Wow, risk management. There's a risk now to the district. Okay? That's real big. The premium for risk management for Tukwila School District is $305,000 annually. That's expensive. Okay? Anytime a district has claims over 51%, guess what? Your premiums go up. Tukwila, a few years ago, it's no secret in the state of Washington that we were sued. Our premiums went up 1,200%. Okay? Because of a culture that we built, that we didn't do anything about. And so it's your obligation as a leader to speak up. Always do the right thing. And so what happens is Dr. Wallace then gets a report, and guess what happens? He has to investigate it. His investigation is in-house, and sometimes it's through risk management, and when it's really heavy, it's through our legal counsel. Those are two separate entities, okay? What happens to you as an administrator if you don't, and we find out, if you don't report it? Guess what? We then have to investigate you, why you didn't let us know. What do we do first? We put you out on leave of absence, administrative leave, okay? And that in itself is an issue, because then the rumor mill starts. Our principal did something. And then we have to plan then, if you're coming back, for your re-entry, and it gets to be real messy. Okay. Let's go to another one. You have been directed to reduce your budget by 10%. Outline the process you will use for making this reduction. What is it impacting? What kind of law? What kind of process at your school? Who wants to take a stab at it?
Well, in Kent,
Glad you're here, Matthew, because I need your help.
So about a month ago, they announced we were going to do an 8% across the board throughout the district reduction in force. So it was left up to each. So then each building was told how they would be impacted FTE-wise. So the principal then said, okay, we're going to go, we have to lose 14 positions. And so we went from about 71 FTE to 57. And might be off by 0.2, but it's pretty close. Yeah, 50. And so this is actually since been canceled because
Then the clear,
pass.
right.
But if that hadn't gone through, what our principal did was said, okay, look at each department so that we can, we look at our current class sizes to see which departments can lose how many people in order to maintain a reasonable class size across the board. Because we don't want to have cut certain positions so that we now have 35 kids per math class, but we have 28 kids in each social studies class. Try to be equitable in that respect. Once the principal made the decision based on the department needs, then he went to the KEA seniority list and said, okay, we have to lose 2.4 FTE from social studies, so you two, I don't have a position for you next year, we phrased it that way, and then so-and-so goes from a 1.0 to a 0.6. And that's all based on seniority and endorsements. If someone has seniority in social studies, but they don't have it in English, they can use that social studies endorsement to maintain their position.
That's right.
So first it came from the district, an allotment of what our new FTE would be. Then the principal was able to decide which departments were affected in what way. So that's step 2, how many FTE they were going to lose. And the third step was looking back to the seniority list and the endorsements, who was going to be gone.
Right. And so the very legal way of doing it is that there's a seniority list. The unions work with HR to develop that. And so the question is, do you have a choice in the matter or not as the principal?
I don't think that he had a choice.
Okay.
He had a choice based on, I think, how many positions were lost per department. That was the one thing he could play around with. But he didn't have a choice in how many FTE we were losing.
That's right.
Or which people were going to be gone.
That's correct. That's correct. So as a principal, sometimes you don't have a choice. You're actually working the process based on union contracts, board policies in that case. And so we have to keep that in mind, that sometimes we're processors of the information. Okay?
And each district's going to have their own CBA, which
Yes. Right. Right. Okay.
And those are legal documents, the board
Those-
policies and procedures and the negotiated agreement that you're following.
Right. So long before it gets to the principal, the superintendent is working with the HR department and having many, many closed sessions with the board members before it gets to the principal's level. So by the time it gets to you, it's been a whole lot of conversation, confidential conversation, and then the principals then go into action with the operational part. Okay? Okay. The next one. Oh, and I meant to tell you where I put the objectives of the day, because on that second slide that says objectives, all of these are to answer some part on there. So when I ask what impact, that's kind of a cheat sheet for you, because it's one of those. Okay, you enter the building over the weekend to finish some tasks before Monday and notice the car of a colleague in the parking lot. So you decide to let her know that you were in the building by going to her classroom. When you opened the door, she was lying on the floor in a puddle of blood. What are some of the initial steps you will take, and think about the impact of the policies of the school district? Okay, who wants to go first? Virginia?
Call 911 immediately.
You got it.
Immediately.
It's very important. It's 911 first. You don't have to hunt down the superintendent.
Call you.
And yes, you passed. Most, not most, but a lot hunt down the superintendent to say it's a person there, but it is to call 911 first. Go further with that. Okay, you've called 911. What happens next?
Hopefully your district has like a risk management team. Potentially then.
Tell us about that, Pam.
Oh, well. A team of professionals in the district that have worked through systems and processes and hopefully have some predetermined letters that they could go out, that they could just easily make it work for that particular case, and how they're going to get the information out to parents and the community members, and how to support the family of the teacher, and have on-site counselors for the upcoming school days and all that kind of stuff, so that it's takes some of the pressure off of the principal in the building, because it's the district is there to support, counselors for the staff, counselors for the principal. So we just had that situation this school year where we had an incident that happened. And
As principals, make sure you keep your risk management information at home as well. The reason why I said weekend, you may not have everything there, so make sure you have the emergency things at home. Don't get ahead of the superintendent or the communication officer of the district. While it may have happened in your building, it is a district issue. So 911 has been called. They're handling that. So it is now time to give the superintendent and the communication officer a chance to lead that effort. In addition, they're going to need you there that weekend. And sometimes this is what I hear. Dr. Berry, it is the weekend. Can you call me on Monday, because you just called me on my personal line. I only want to talk with you on a school line. I talked to Dr. Wallace about that on the way here, and you in your career before you get started. If you do not have any flexibility to talk when we need to talk and all. I'm not talking about a superintendent that calls you just to chat. For me, when I call you, it's important. It's something I need right there.
Is that a part of the contract for principals that you have to be available and flexible at some point in time for this? It's not like a teacher's job ends from 8 to 7 or 8 to 5. And you have to. The expectation is that you are grading over the weekend. You're grading in the evening after your contract hours, and the same kind of thing. So if I sit there and say, I'm not going to do any grading off my hours, okay, then that's your job, because part of your job is to grade, just like as a part of your job as a principal is to be available.
So you're talking about professional protocol.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. That once you become a principal, it's a different kind of professional protocol. When this happened in my building, matter of fact, all of these are true scenarios. This one was real important when that happened in the building. I was the one that came in, okay? The person was there. At the time, my administrator needed help in securing the buildings. I have an IT background. She grabbed me and said, because you got to protect the cameras, the footage, and all of that. And so I had to go into that mode, and I couldn't say, sorry, I'm not in the technology area anymore. My job is. No. because when the police were there, they needed us to protect that building. And she said, Dr. Berry knows how to do that. Let's get her to that command post to do all of that, okay? And so because I hear it so often that it's not my job, wrong time of the day, I'm busy, boom, no. Make sure you're available, but don't get ahead of the public communication, because remember, you need to think risk management. It is going to be a case, and so we can't get out there with the wrong communication. Okay? Dr. Wallace?
Let me just say, as a principal, what you know, your staff has to know. Because it may not be you coming into the building. It may be one of your staff people, so they have to have the same level of information and knowledge as you do. There has to be a safety plan that's simply a part of building operations.
Talk about our safety plan and how you go over it with the cabinet and with the principals.
That's correct. Everybody has a need to know, and you as the principal, that is one of your primary responsibilities. The earlier discussion about what is your role and what is your responsibility, if someone has to tell you that, you're going to be a short timer. You're going to be a short timer, because when you move into an administrative capacity, you have to demonstrate that you belong there, and you're not going to wait to be told. The assumption is that you have had the training and the preparation necessary to do the job. And, you know, I always say to people, if you hesitate, it's better to take an action than no action at all and subject yourself to being criticized. It's very difficult, but again, and I'll just conclude, whatever you know, make sure your staff knows. Bring them along. And it's written. It's just not in your mind. Anybody that comes into your building should be able to find the procedures, the plans, and be able to handle an emergency, which is going to happen.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I remember this one. Whoa, this one was tough on me. A new technology system has been installed in your school district, and you find out that your staff is unable to retrieve previously stored IEPs from the old system or save new IEP documents in the system's database. What are the impacts to special education legal requirements, and what are some of the steps you should take to remedy this situation? Bridget.
Should be a hard copy on file in the district office. And as an SLP, I have a working copy with the signatures in my file cabinet. That's locked, that's confidential. So if technology goes tomorrow, and which it does happen all the time, they disappear, we have that taken care of, and that should be taken care of immediately and not thought about it later.
Okay. How many of us are a little lax with our filing? Anybody? All of us are. I'm surprised. All of us are. Okay. All of us are. Okay. I used to be until this happened. I kind of changed it to special ed for this so I could meet that objective on the front. But at my school, we installed an entirely new system for the service side as well as the student management side had tested it and tested it and tested it. And I'll give you the college side, not the K-12 side. They were in worse shape than me. But the new technology would not talk to the U.S. Department of Education. Another big case that happened there. And 1,200 financial aid checks could not be delivered. And that was big, big, big money and everything. And so was the backup system, okay? Same as special ed, I put it at that level with that scenario there, that you better have your documents. And you need to have official documents. I am so glad you said I had the official ones or the copies of it with signatures. It's not a working copy. It's the actual copy. I will tell you that I know a few folks, even though it was a technology glitch, folks have lost their jobs because they did not have that backup copy, official backup copy, okay? Okay, and the key thing is that manual copy must be secured. So important for special ed and other categoricals. Okay. Oh, this one, one of my teachers lost his certification and all on number 5. Oops, I'm getting ahead. I should not have told that. We'll talk about the law here. A department chair shares with you that a substitute teacher has discovered porn on the student server in a high school computer technology classroom. The porn video features students from the class. And I do want to tell you, under 16, most of them were female on the video. What would you do? What legal obligations should be followed? Lane.
So this is a full-scale investigation. First thing I do is I call the district and let them know this is being reported. Even before I interview the substitute teacher, when the person is reported it, because some districts have risk management teams that want police involved immediately, because there is potential crime that has been committed, the video taken from the crime. From a personal level or a professional level, parents want to know why a substitute teacher has access to the network and how that came about. Because a substitute has kind of different protections and not part of the collective bargaining agreement and other things that I need to consider. So take guidance from them. If they say it's your building, you handle it, then it's a full-on interview with the substitute teacher, the reporting teacher, and then getting police involved so that they can help make the investigation with the students. Because that's not information that I want to see. I don't want that information being shared with anyone in terms of videos. So technology support has to get those videos saved to a separate port or hard drive and everything cleared off of the network so no one else can access it. And we have to call the parents of the students to let them know that a potential crime has been committed. But I only
Who's doing the calling?
well, see, if there's a police officer involved, I let them decide when they do that because they may not want there to be any interference in their investigation. And if a parent is in some way involved or a guardian involved in either capturing the video or setting up the video or even through negligence allowing that to happen, they're going to make a determination about when the best time is to involve the parent.
As a principal, who do you call first?
For me, in that situation, I'm probably going to call, it's a tie. I guess I'd flip a coin when I keep in my desk because I want to call the superintendent. I also want to call risk management, and I also want to call the police. It's a three-way tie.
Call the superintendent.
Superintendent first.
No, call the superintendent, period.
Yeah, okay.
And then the superintendent, let the superintendent make that call, okay? Let's talk about when do you call the superintendent? Let's talk about timeline. You found out. Because with risk management, time is important. When do you call? The second you find out, and risk management must be called immediately by district staff. The superintendent is off campus. You can't get the superintendent. Who do you call? The next person in command. It is not an option for you to wait for the superintendent to answer the phone. Yeah, you call the deputy, you call HR. We do not have a deputy in our district, so you call HR, the executive director, but it must be called immediately. Let's talk about the law then. What happens to you if you don't call? What's the impact on you? I'm talking about the principal's rights now from page 2. What happens if you don't call, Lane?
If I don't call the principal or the superintendent right away?
If you don't call anybody.
I don't call anyone.
You know, it's remember, it's busy in schools. Principals' jobs are busy. So you're getting ready to take care of some other stuff because you're busy.
My first priority as administrator is the safety of my staff and my students.
Okay.
Right? I mean, number one. So this is a potentially an unsafe thing. So it's not really an option not to do anything.
Okay.
It just is. The ramifications are losing my job. Also, potentially, I would think, criminal charges being brought against me, especially if there's abuse. And that's one of the reasons why I'm questioning and that I've had to ask you, because you say call the superintendent first. If I have, as dean, somebody report to me child abuse, my first call is to CPS, and then to my supervisors about what's going on. In this scenario, I have high school students, presumably under the age of 18, engaged in a crime.
Allegedly.
Allegedly a crime, but they're underage, being videotaped. My temptation is this is abuse. This is potential abuse. Shouldn't I be calling CPS?
Okay. We need to talk about this case a little bit more. Let me take your question.
There's a legality piece behind it. You're legally obligated to do that.
Yes.
I mean, there's no question. I mean, you can't wait on someone because you are legally obligated to do that. It's not even it's a question about safety, but it's also a question of the law.
That's good. It's the law. What happens to you then if you don't? And then I want to talk about this case a little bit more. I followed this case all the way through. This happened at my school as well. I guess I came out okay because years later I still have a job.
And you
So-
still have your certification.
And so I want to talk about that. You did not only lose your job from the school district, you also lose your certification for life. This is very, very, very serious. Now, why I say call the superintendent, just because I went through this as a building administrator, why I said females. The police wanted to do it totally different, to take the things off the computer. You secure the computer, but you don't change it and put it in other places. And so what happened, because in my case, these were females. They brought in a whole female team to look over the videos and remove them from the system. It's totally different. I mean, I grew about 20 years in that scenario because guess what, Lane? I had it down pat just like you. We call it here, 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 and here. We learned how to do that, protective service. They said, nope. But it wasn't until I stopped to breathe after calling the superintendent, which then the authorities were called immediately. They go right into action with you. And they start leading you as principal. Don't touch that, Dr. Berry. Don't worry, our team's on their way. See, they have the female team, technology team, they have the mixed team, they have all of that. And so sometimes I say to principals, call the superintendent or call that person in charge at the district office that moment. And that's another team that swarms in to help you with the situation. Okay? And in my situation, I have, and probably all superintendents, I have the chief of police number in my cell phone. Doesn't matter where I am in the country, he's going to call me, and guess what? I'm going to go into the mode I need to, regardless of where I am. And then what's happening is we begin communicating with you, and those teams come on board very fast. The other thing is this. What happened to me recently, a different than this scenario, but it's still going on. Guess who I found out from? Not my principal. The chief called me up. Dr. Berry, I want to meet with you in your office. I can't talk to you on the phone. And he came with his detective. He came with some police. And I said, oh my goodness, this is serious. It's not just the chief coming to visit me. Well, when he laid out 3 weeks of a rape situation in one of my high schools, and the principal didn't tell me, and they were telling me, whoa,
Well,
whoa.
I would ask this group, if you were in a position of authority, how would you react to that scenario? Don't all speak at once. Yes. Well, you could be the principal. Or you could, let's talk about the principal. If you were the principal and that scenario presented itself.
I think then it gets to the mode we need to, we call the people in charge to get the investigation rolling. So we call the superintendent first.
Okay. Talk to me about confidentiality. I've been waiting for that word, because in all of these scenarios, what is the importance of confidentiality? Got to do it. You've got to do it. And that's why you don't go to your favorite staff member. You don't go to your custodian or your administrative assistant. The confidentiality piece is huge, because that travels much faster than the truth. So that's the piece. Always fold that into your decision making. Any kind of situation, protect yourself legally by trying to keep whatever the situation is as confidential as possible. And then there's the rumors, because if people don't know, guess what? They make it up. They make it up. Then something gets out there that's really not true.
I think part of it is, just kind of looking at the legal perspective, and even as a superintendent, why did my principal not tell me? Are they trying to hide something, trying to put something? And that's where the rumors start, because then it starts to build up. What are they not telling? And I think that becomes a problem.
And
if
what
you're
the,
not ahead of it.
yeah, and what the superintendent hears from the chief and the detective is, your principal said to keep this on the down low. But our relationship, we call each other all the time. And so then you're saying on the down low. Ooh, I'm thinking on page 3 now, teacher, principal evaluation. What are the issues there? The legal part. What are your rights? Okay? It's the law. One area says you must always report immediately, as if it's something to do with sexual harassment or a crime against a student. Okay, sexual crime in nature. Yeah, John.
So I think it's easy for us to sit around here and be like, well, why wouldn't they have called the superintendent in these
situations, because we're not in that role, is it typically, does the principal not call the superintendent in these situations right away because they're too busy, or because they're trying to figure it out on their own? Like, what has been here?
The reason why is, one, they're busy. That's why I mentioned that. Your jobs, you know that already you're in buildings, but you are very, very, very busy as a principal. But when I'm trying to get you to see, in this case, I don't care how busy you are. How busy. Because guess what? You report to the superintendent. The superintendent supervises principals. I now have a criminal situation on my hand, and now I have an evaluation issue on my hands. Okay? Now, my principal found out right away that the chief, because I'm in a small school district, anybody pulls up to my office, it's calls to every building, okay? And when the chief comes there, wow, guess what? The principal says, oh my goodness, she calls and says, Dr. Berry, I was so busy. Oh, I forgot. And I said, you forgot for 30, almost 30 days? And so guess what? I don't have a choice. That doesn't become just a casual conversation. I don't wait until the end of the year to put something in the evaluation. And in the meantime, she said, but I talked to 4 counselors about it, and we felt that, you know, it's probably not. Okay, that's not for us to judge. Everything is alleged unless you see it yourself, and it still has to be proven in a court, okay?
Also, I think as a superintendent, you want to be ahead of the game, and you don't like surprises.
Right.
It's not that, you know, part of it is the other part of it is you don't want the chief of police to tell you something that's been happening for 30 days, and you're not able to get ahead of it or kind of, you know, figure out how to deal with it.
Right. Right. Yes.
Let me just interject. In situations like that, there's a mandatory duty to report
That's the law.
at any level, not just your principals. If there's a teacher that knows, if there's a counselor that knows. So everybody should know the rules regardless of the position.
Anyone
have
who knows must report.
Must report. Or it's a criminal offense.
That's right.
It is criminal, you know, in these situations. So whenever you say criminal, could be jail time, could be loss of job, could be loss of certification. You know, there are many, many, many variables, which is why this preparation on the legal issue is so critical.
See, sometimes we think, and I did early in my career, I just felt I was the best curriculum designer, curriculum instruction person, and I was ready for that administrative position. I didn't get much of this talked about in the classroom. Matter of fact, as superintendent, whoa, do I think I know the academic side. You know, I study the data on student achievement. I know it in my sleep and all of that. Well, I think I'm ready. That's what I want to do every day, work on that stuff. This consumes 98% of my time every day. And this happens at a building level where you will be the principal. Doesn't happen much in the central office. We're small, okay? Okay? And so what are you going to do? This is going to take more of your time than you think.